Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
The crazy crew with which I work, I love them. I love them. I just love working with this bunch of crazy people indeed. We're 8 minutes now after 7 o'clock as we turn our attention to love and life and relationships. We do all of that on a Monday indeed with our relationship coach, Dr. Denise Charles. Dr. Denise, good morning. Oh, look at you.
Good morning, Pearson. How are you doing?
I'm great. Look at you. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic, thank you. Had a great weekend. Looking forward to another good week.
That is great. You know, as I was driving out of here the other day, I was passing the SJP and I said, wait, look at Denise. Did you know that? Did you know that? That there is a banner on the SJPI with you and Gabriel?
Pearson? Yes.
Well done indeed.
We are multi-talented and multifaceted.
Clearly so indeed. How was date night, by the way, on Friday?
It was really good. We had some great interaction with our guests because what we do, in addition to
Yes.
dancing and sipping our wine and chatting between ourselves, we also entertain those who watch. So we had some great comments and some great discussion coming out of our topic, which was loving a woman.
Oh, yeah. And that could be a challenge in itself.
Exactly. I mean, the book on that has not yet been finished.
I don't think it ever will.
Never be complete.
Correct indeed. And so, folks, this is the mood that we're in because, you know, relationships have the good times and the bad times, but we can laugh through relationships. But there are times, Dr. Denise, when, for some reason, some other noise gets into it, and I'll call that the third party for just a moment. Whether that noise comes by way of a good friend or not, whether it comes by way of the mother-in-law, whether it comes by way of the sister or whoever, the third party, and what that can do for a relationship. I want you to look at that for just a moment with me.
All right, Pearson, I think this is one of the most critical areas that I interface with, certainly, or I have looked at as a counselor, as a writer on relationships, the whole question of the third party. Now, I know immediately in our Bajan parlance, as we hear this, we're going to think about horning, which I know occupies all of our thinking, where this is concerned. But as you rightfully said, it can span a gamut of types of interferences in a relationship. So yes, we do have that traditional infidelity that we are so acquainted with what we call horning in Barbados. And then you have also interferences from other people. You may have interferences, as you rightfully said, from a mother-in-law. You might have it from a good friend, someone of the opposite sex that you have connected with. You may not be into an affair, but it could still disturb the relationship. So I think that what to me is very important with respect to this topic, Pearson, is the whole question of creating boundaries and understanding what those boundaries should be, what they should look like, and how you need to put them into operation from the get-go in your relationship. So whether you're married or not, you have to create those boundaries. You have to actually start practicing this from even before you're married, because if you don't, you're going to run yourself in trouble.
You're so right. You know, I have friends of mine who said, but Pierce, you're so harsh. I said, no, I set the rules. If we're going to have this friendship, I set the rules. You can set yours too, but I'll say to you what I want, what I expect, and what I will not tolerate. All of those kinds of things I determine up front. So if you want to be my friend, expect to hear some rules. But I think it is important that you set those boundaries that you've just defined, so that I know and you know where the lines are drawn and that we understand each other perfectly so we avoid conflicts and confusion.
Pearson, it's also very critical for the couple to have an agreement about what those boundaries are going to look like. Because if I decide that my boundary looks this particular way because of my values or because of what I believe about a relationship, but my partner or my husband sets a different set of boundaries that are nowhere near mine, then we could easily run ourselves into problems because I'm going to become unhappy because I'm thinking that he's not living up to the boundaries that I have set. So this isn't something that we can do in isolation. We have to sit down and have a discussion about what the boundaries in our relationship should look like. And one of the most critical areas I speak to couples about is the whole issue of emotional connection with people of the opposite sex. That's the first thing I deal with. Because if you are married or you are in a committed relationship, we're not saying that you can't have friends. Of course you can have friends. You'll have work colleagues, you'll have people that you've known before your partner, that you've known before your spouse. You know, there'll be people that you connect with and so on that you like. There's nothing wrong with that. But you have to set boundaries with respect to how close you're going to get to that person, how much you will expose of yourself, how much you will expose of your relationship. Because how things go with us as human beings, the more we expose of ourselves to someone, the closer we become connected. And when we become closely connected, we become emotionally vulnerable with someone. And you don't want that, because that could interfere with the intimacy of your significant relationship, right? So you have to set that boundary from the get-go in terms of how close you'll get to someone of the opposite sex, what things you will do. Will you allow yourself to have lunch, to have dinner with someone of the opposite sex? Will you restrict that to perhaps a work colleague, and know that within the context of work, it's okay to have a lunch, a lunch date or so with someone in your office? Or will you allow that to spill over into after hours? Will you have dinner with someone who is not your partner? So these are discussions that you need to have, because while these things may seem innocent at the outset, it is the potential danger that they hold that can be problematic. And that is what we have to guard against when we're thinking of the third party. Because if you become too connected emotionally with someone else who you shouldn't be connected with, then that begins to interfere with your own relationship. And even especially if that relationship is having challenges, because you're having challenges in your marriage or in your significant relationship, and you begin to discuss it with someone of the opposite sex that you've gotten close to, you are in a serious danger zone, person.
You're
serious.
You're right.
Right? And this is something you have to guard against.
But what if it's my nature just to be friendly and, like to confide with other people, that kind of...
Nothing is wrong with being friendly. Nothing is wrong with being friendly. And you have to understand your relationship. You have to understand the heartbeat of your relationship. You have to understand who your partner is and who you are. My husband and I are like polar opposites in some respects, even though we're still very similar. He is an extremely warm person. And it's not that I am not warm, but take time to warm up to you. When I get to know you, I warm up to you gradually. Whereas he runs in at the get-go. That's how his personality is and always has been. So you have to know your partner and understand what type of personality your partner has, so you're not too hard on them. And you don't misread and read something into every connection that they have. You don't want to get paranoid and begin to accuse your partner of having an affair or of being inappropriate, because that's the next negative thing that could come out of something like this. But at the same time, you don't want to be accusatory, and you don't want to be always thinking, being suspicious. You still have to be on the alert. Your partner has to be on the alert. Actually, the responsibility lies with the individual who has made the friend. All right. So if I'm the person who has the friendship, that responsibility really should lie with me. It shouldn't lie with my husband checking my phone and checking my every move to see if I'm doing something inappropriate, right? So you have to own it. You have to be responsible for yourself. You're not a little child. You're an adult. You're in an adult relationship. You have to be responsible for yourself. Having said that, we know that we are not perfect as individuals. We have our own histories. We have our own baggages. And sometimes we bring a lot of that into relationships. And as a result, we make bad choices, make bad decisions. If you are not in a space where you communicate well with your spouse, when things go south with the two of you, you retreat and you refuse to talk, and you go for days, you stonewall, you don't let your partner know how you feel about things, and you are putting yourself in a very volatile space where you could easily become attracted to unload to someone else. And that is why it's important to pay attention to the health of your relationship, because the healthier your relationship is, the better it is guaranteed to stave off inappropriate attachments, whether emotional or sexual.
You're right. You're so right on that score. I agree with you. Our thinking is the same. When it's the sister, though, so she calls her sister, and you wouldn't believe what he just did or what he just said or where he just went.
Yes.
It's the sister. Can the sister be considered the third party who has that negative impact on the relationship?
Pearson, the sister, the mother, the best
Whomever.
friend, anyone can be considered the third wheel in a relationship if that person's advice or if that person's role it sets gets outside of the boundaries. Now, I'm not saying that you can never unpack to anyone. I'm not one of those who says, you know, if you are in a relationship, you have to keep it totally between the two. You never speak to anyone about anything. I don't think that's healthy. I think you have to decide who will be the individuals you share with. It may be one person, it may be two. The individual should be trusted. The individual should be someone is trustworthy. The person should be someone who loves both of you, not just you, but the person should be someone who loves your marriage and who wants to see your marriage work. You don't want to be sharing with someone who hates marriage, someone who's been divorced and is very bitter, who has not gotten over it, who is egging you on to get a divorce if you're having problems. That's the worst type of person to speak to. So it has to be balanced. You don't want to speak to someone else who's also going to be advising you to accept and put up with abuse or to put up with infidelity. So you have to have that correct. The person has to love you because, as I said in one of our earlier programs, Pearson, when you love someone, you really want what is best for them. And no one should be telling you what to do. No one should be telling you what to do, giving you the advice which is a demand or is telling you, oh, you must do this, you must do that. You have to make your own decisions. But I think it is important to have someone that you can offload to. But at the same time, you have to watch what role that person is playing. And it can't be that every time there's a disagreement, you're calling mommy or you're calling daddy or you're calling your sister or you're calling your brother. You have to have that sense of loyalty within your relationship. You know, the stronger you are as a person, the more mature you are as a person, the easier it will be for you to handle your own issues by yourself. But at the same time, I don't want to suggest that if you look to someone or if you look to a counselor, if you look to a good trusted friend who you think has a mature perspective, that means you're weak, because it doesn't. Actually, you're actually a stronger person for being someone who wants to share your issues or challenges with someone so that you can get help and so that the marriage can improve or the relationship can improve if you're not married, you know. So I think it is something that we have to balance. I think it is important that we open to other people appropriately. You may not share every single thing, and it becomes dangerous, I think, if every time you're sharing something, it's something negative. Every time you're calling your sister to complain about your partner, it's a problem. Call her and say, you know what he did for me today? He took me to the spa. He gave me a pedicure, you know. He's taking me on a cruise for Valentine's. He's doing this, he's doing that. We just spent some wonderful time just, you know, at the beach. Things that are positive as well. If every time you're calling, you're complaining, I have a problem with that. You need to look at your relationship.
You are such a January born for real. I'm telling you, your way of thinking is so similar to mine. Now, if you find yourself being pulled in as a third party, how do you handle this? How do you butt out? How do you tell yourself, I'm out of this, I'm not staying in this at all?
Again, it's about how you feel about the couple. If you love this couple or you appreciate them, and even if you're closer to one of the individuals, because you might have known her from school days, y'all might have gone to university together, or you worked in some organization together for a long time, so you're really good friends, and over the years you've built up the friendship. She may be the person who you really know, but in the context of the relationship, you appreciate the marriage and you want to see it work. If you think she's turning to you too much, or he is turning to you too much, if it's a male, then I think you should say it. There's no magic way of getting out of it. You have to let them know, you know, I appreciate the things you've been sharing with me. I understand what you may be going through, but I think that you need to work on this by yourself, or I think you need to see a professional. You know, I'll be here for you if anything gets really off. You know, if it gets worse, I'm still here for you to support you. But, you know, I don't prefer to hear these details. You can say that. You know, you don't have to be somebody who's just there looking to take in every spicy detail or every even deplorable detail. Sometimes, you know, we as human beings, we just thrive on listening to the worst things. But if your motive is good and it's all about helping them and helping them to move on in their relationship, or your motive is in getting them help, then I think there's nothing to worry about. I think you'll be able to manage just fine in terms of how you seek to bring balance to the individual, and perhaps point them in the direction of professional help if you think you're not able to offer the type of assistance that they really need.
You have shared so much this morning, Dr. Denise Charles. It was really, really good indeed. Really, really good. I mean, folks, really, really good. And So I want you to contact Dr. Denise Charles if you care to, and she'll be happy to respond. She's on social media. Just look for it, Dr. Denise Charles, and you can reach out to her if you want to discuss further this subject of the third party and how that impacts your relationship and what you can do to find a more happy space in which to live. Dr. Denise Charles, thank you. We'll be contacting you to work out what we'll talk about next. But thank you as always for joining us on Morning Barbados.
Blessings. Have a great day.
Likewise.